gonna build a hospital plate for this mare that's got this laceration and bad abscess on the lateral side of this heel quarter. So after we get the foot cleaned up, we're going to go ahead and build a bar shoe. And if you need to see how to build a bar shoe, go to one of my previous videos. I'm assuming that we already have the bar shoe made up. We're going to start drilling our holes to attach the plate to. I use 2 toenails or 2 toe screws and 2 heel screws right inside of the first nail hole up front and then back at the heels behind. I use a Dawn dishwashing soap and water as a lubricant. A machinist taught me this years ago, and it's one of the ways not to get so messy when building one of these things if you use the Dawn dishwashing soap and water mixture. So after you get your front holes, then come back and drill in your heels and push them back towards the bar as far as you can to where you got that coddle support and you're not pushing the horse forward on these bolts when we get done. So just take your time, drill them, get them straight, get those holes as straight as you possibly can, because when you go to tapping them, you got to make sure that those holes are straight when you tap so your bolts go into the plate square. Alright, now what we're going to do is we're going to grab a piece of plate and we're going to go ahead and mark the outside of the shoe to where we know where our exterior part of that plate's going to lie on top of this horseshoe when we get it all bolted up. So after we get it all marked out, we're going to go ahead and you can cut it any way you want. I use a plasma cutter, so it's a little more simple for me to just go ahead and plasma cut this thing out close to the line, and then we do any finish touch-ups back on the grinder after we get it all cut out. But just take your time, cut it as quick as you can. Try not to ever cut it too narrow, because you can always take off, you can't always add back on. Now after we've had the plate marked, we're going to go ahead and mark each hole to where we can make sure that we get the plate to where it'll fit on the shoe properly. So center those down. You notice that I have that vice grip together to where you make sure that doesn't move, to where when you drill those holes will line up when you go to put it back on. Then you're just going to go ahead and the same procedure that you drilled the shoe out, just drill those holes back out. I go with a little bit bigger than 3/8 bit, one size bigger, to where those bolts will fit down easily, because you got to remember you're going to be dealing with an owner and a horse that's pulling and jerking on them if he's sore, to where those holes are big enough to where they can get those bolts started without any problem. Okay, now we're going to tap the shoe out. I failed to mention earlier that I drilled 5/16 inch holes into the shoe to where I could tap a 3/8 by 16 tap inside of it. So you're going to use a 3/8 by 16 bolt when you go to attach this plate to this horseshoe. For some reason my soap and water isn't working real good, so we're going to get through that and get back at it. Alright, add a little bit of lubricating. We can never get it to work. There we go. And I use a tapping gun, but here's the 2 different types of bolts. You can use a regular hex head bolt, but I use these borium treated bolts from Texas Farrier Supply. Holler down there at Chuck and he can get you some of these made up if you do very many of these hospital plates are worth having. So see how that bolt sticks out from the plate after we get it? You have to get all that excess off where it's not pushing into the hoof capsule or into the wall or anything after its application. So we get those, grind those down to where they're smooth with the shoe, and then you can start taking any excess off of the plate at that time. Then you take your bolt, and I put them in vice grips, and I go ahead and I round that tip up, because if you take about the first thread and a half off and cone that end of that bolt, they're that much easier to start. And you dang sure want them easy to start, because the owners have the tendency, if they don't start, they drop them and then they lose them, and then you're trying to match a bolt up. So go ahead and clean your plate up, get all the burrs and everything off of it to where, one, they don't cut themselves when they take that and slide that plate out of the way to treat the bottom of this hoof. And I didn't mention earlier, but always mark the top side of your plate to where you know which way it goes on that shoe, and that way your owner will know. This one's colored, so it's not that big of a deal. But once again, see how those bolts are coned? You want to make sure that you cone those to where they're easy to start, and they'll go right in. Now go ahead and check them all. If they don't go hand tight, you need to either retap or clean your bolts up to get them to go. Get all your 4 bolts in started. Make sure after you get them started and tightened up that nothing's sticking out the back side or the ground surface side of that horseshoe. So here we're gonna go ahead and, like I say, once again, these are a borium treated bolt, and the reason I like those is, one, it gives the horse a little bit of traction, and then 2, they don't wear out. I've had some of these horses run around so much with these hospital plates on that they come back and the bolts are worn out and they can't even get the bolt out. So, and taking a cutting towards the horse's foot's not good, or having to grind that head of that bolt off to where you can get the plate off there. So make it to where it's as easy as possible for the customer at hand. Okay, now we're going to do any finishing touches up on the shoe. Make sure that there's no excess hanging off. Get all your rough edges off, clean it up real good, and we should be ready to start nailing up here at any time. All right, now we're ready to nail up. Go ahead and take our finished shoe over to the horse. Apply the nails that are necessary to keep the shoe on. There are some spots that if you have an infected area towards the outside of the hoof wall, you may not be able to get any nails in that position. So just get the nails that you best you can. Sometimes you have to throw, everything has to be in the front 3 nail holes out when it comes to these corrective shoes and things like this. Sometimes you may have to put a 4th nail hole in to relieve the infected area to where you don't have any pressure nail on it. So once we get it nailed up, we're going to go ahead and I grab Forstner's hoof packing, and I use the Forstner's hoof packing in the back half of the foot, to where when I put my impression material or my Equipack up underneath that bar to seal the back side of these hooves, that none of the Equipack or impression material will push up into the hoof capsule. Now, if you have an infected area back in the heel, back in the back side of your frog, you're not able to put that Forstner's back in there, and you may have to leave that back half of that hospital plate open underneath the bar. So in that case, you want to just you have to wrap some vet wrap or elasticon around that shoe to keep the dirt out from behind. But if you take this Forstner's like this, put it in there, and then now make sure before you put this Equipack in that you've got those heel bolts in, because if you squirt this Equipack into those bolt holes, it will plug them up, and you will have heck. You have to pull that shoe off and have to retap it. So make sure that you have your bolts in the heel screws before you go applying your impression material or the hoof pack. And there's different ways to do it. You can squirt it through the hole or through the backside, but I do it through both ways. The only reason I drill that hole is to where I make sure that that's kind of like a little rivet to help hold that in, because the owners have the tendency to want to take a hoof pick and pick that stuff out the back, and if you don't have it stuck somewhere, they're going to pull it completely out and then blame you because the foot got water and dirt and mud in it because it wasn't sealed on the backside. Now all we got to do is put our bolts back in, and what I do is I teach all my owners how to slide that plate out of the way with one bolt hole. Have the one bolt in, then go ahead and put your treatment in. Here we're using sugar dye and just some gauze to help heal this abscess up and finalize. You can leave that Forstner's in the back side of that foot and it doesn't hurt anything. If you want, you can dig it out. It doesn't make any difference either way. But just go ahead and get your packing and make sure that it's on your affected area, and then go ahead and just bolt it back up. And once you get it bolted back up, you're all good to go. All right, get your bolts placed in. Make sure that you tighten them up. It's best to go ahead and use a crescent wrench instead of a pair of nail pull-offs or something like that you think that you can use as a wrench. The proper tool always seems to work a little better, because if you have to replace these bolts in between times, it can be misery because you don't know the length that they actually need to be. So go ahead and take it, get them hand tight first, make sure that your plate's sealed good, tighten them up with a crescent wrench. Yeah, don't use this tool, guys. This is not what it was designed for. It was designed to pull nails, not to tighten nail or the bolts with. So get the proper tool. There we go. Get your crescent wrench. Tighten them down. Make sure they're tight, because these things will back off, and when you lose one, it is misery. I'm going to tell you that from the beginning. So after you get it all tightened down, you're good to go. Hope that you have luck with them. If you have any questions or anything, don't mind if you holler at me. Let me know if I can do any other videos for you. Thank you.